Everyone, welcome. Welcome to another monthly webinar with NowCup. Appreciate you all being here. We're going to give everyone about 30 seconds or so to come in, settle in. And as we wait for everyone, just a couple of notes that I wanted to make. Because of the recent events, we have decided to invite Paulo De Filippi to help us moderate this panel and help us navigate this discussion. For those of you who may not know who Pablo is, he is the NowCup Vice Chairman and he is the EVP of Inclusive. So we're very happy to have him join us. Filling in for Barbara as well. Barbara was asked to visit one of our local credit union members here in Raleigh. So she is doing a panel over with them, but she obviously sends her regards and wishes she could be here. But we're lucky to have Pablo with us. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it over to him and I'll let him take it away.
Gracias, Navy. So you're getting the ugly side of NALCAP, Pablo instead of Barbara. So hopefully you can put up with me. Um, I'm so happy to be hosting this conversation. There's so much going on. There's so much fear. So before I introduce this amazing panel, I want to acknowledge, what's going on at the federal level. We are all aware of this executive order that came out last week and the potential implications, right? I mean, an EO is not law. So we want to make sure that everyone who's, anxious about it, don't overreact. At this point, there's no changes whatsoever with any of the
Yeah.
authorities that we as credit unions have to serve immigrant populations. So the message that is important for us to share internally with our teams is that nothing has changed, right? Nothing has changed. And also, the message for our members and the communities where they live is that we're still serving them, right? Because what we don't want is to create this, distrust that is already brewing in many communities around the financial system. This has been a lifetime, undertaking to, convince people to trust the financial system, and we've done it. I think that all these collective, NALCAP, Inclusive, the Juntos Avanzamos network, have done an amazing work in connecting with these communities, but all these could be at risk, not only because of the actions that may not happen in the future, but just because of the perception of the community that we're not a safe place anymore. So if we agree that this is important to communicate, we need you guys to be champions internally with your teams. There are concerns at the board level, there are concerns on the management level, is this a time to exit this, market? The bottom line is that if we do, we're going to be setting ourselves back decades. We will not be able to recover, the ground in our lifetimes. So with that, I just hope that everyone is in agreement and can help us communicate and lower the temperature right now, because there's all this, perception about things that are happening. The EO mandate or instruct the Treasury Department to engage, agencies. There's a timeline, that goes from 60 to 180 days of, work that needs to be done. So we want to make sure that everyone understands that this is something very fluid at this point. The trades have been monitoring this. There are different perspectives about it. NALCAP and Inclusive came out with a statement a couple of days ago that is more clear in terms of the implications of these actions and the impact that could have on our communities. But again, hopefully we can manage that perception until more clarity comes out, and until we see also what type of, um, changes will take place, if any. Let's be clear that none of this is, certain. We're just speculating at this point in time. So with that said, let's dive in because we have this amazing panel here. I'm going to start with Rocio Flores. She is the Chief Social Impact Officer of USC Community Credit Union in Los Angeles, a great friend, a great champion of this work. Ricardo Cruz Duran, Director of Mortgage Production for Chadway FCU or Credit Union. Actually, you guys are in Virginia, but I understand that you have operations in Utah and other states, Sprawling Credit Union. And Oscar Gutierrez, a lending solution specialist at Carolina Foothills FCU. No need to explain where you guys are located. You're in the Carolinas, South Carolina specifically. So with that, before we dive in, can we just go around you guys and introduce yourself, what is driving you to do the work that you're doing, and then we'll start the conversation around ITIN lending. Rocio, you first, Oscar, and then Ricardo. How's that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Pablo. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to Null Cup for having me. So again, a little bit about my role at the credit union. I do all the social impact work, and that includes community business development, which is where the tone of kind of my responses to the conversation will be, and being out with community and bringing in members to the credit union, also identifying partnerships and such of where we can meet community needs, enrolling a community to become a member of the credit union. We also are a CDFI. And so for those of you that are CDFIs in the room, you understand the beautiful world of CDFIs and navigating that as a credit union. And so that's also something that I have a charge to do and manage for the credit union. We have a foundation as well, and so director of that foundation where a lot of our community financial education programs live, and some fund development as well is included in the role that I do. So I kind of wear different hats within the credit union, but again, overall, it is supporting our local communities, working with partners, and just sharing the benefits of credit unions so that we can bring more to become members, to gain access to our loans, our deposit products, and that includes our ITIN and immigrant communities.
Thank you, Rocio. So, Oscar, your turn.
Hello, hello. My name is Oscar. I'm one of the lending solution specialists here at Carolina Foothills. Actually, the only bilingual lender. So anybody who speaks Spanish comes in and sees me. We are also a CDFI, as Rocio said, here at Carolina Foothills. And I am also one of the vice presidents in the Latino engagement community that we have, focused on driving and staying engaged with our Latino community. So very excited to be here, very excited for this discussion.
You, Oscar. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Okay. And hello, everybody. I'm Ricardo Cruz Duran. I'm the Director of Mortgage Production for Chartway Credit Union. As Pablo said, we're located in Virginia. That's where the headquarters is located. But we also have operations out in Utah. We have operations out in Texas. And we do lend anywhere in the USA except for New York right now. We're happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation to NOCUP. And yeah, let's get started there, Pablo.
Fantastic. So one thing that none of you guys mentioned is that you are all Juntos Avanzamos designated, So, and Oscar, your Canadian just celebrated their designation when?
Yes.
Last month?
Yeah,
Or
we
this
recently
month.
had
Yes.
a little event a week ago or 2 weeks ago to celebrate the designation. Thank you.
Well, congratulations. And so yeah, let's talk about, what's going on with all this environment and the impact on ITIN lending. All of you are champions of ITIN lending, and let's put this in context. ITIN lending is not a new type of lending. It has been around for a long time. It's also not an atypical type of lending. There are billions of dollars in ITIN loans in our system, in the credit union movement, and also in the banking system. So when we hear all these noises around ITIN holders being targeted, we have to understand that there's a fear component more than a reality component. I don't want to dismiss the fear, because there are things that are happening then that could have those consequences, in terms of like the sharing of IT numbers, holding information with ICE, for instance, could have, huge implications for undocumented immigrants. But the reality is none of this has yet translated into real actions or mandates for financial institutions, right? So we're still in this status quo, but because people are hearing about, all these uncertain things in the news, I'm sure that your members and your own colleagues at the credit union may be asking the same questions. Should we continue to do this? Is it safe to do it? So the first question, and we'll go around, not necessarily all of you have to answer the question, but I guess the first thing is, what have you noticed in terms of member engagement or comfort level among your ITIN borrowers? Has it been any changes? Are people coming forward still or not? Are you noticing any, trends where people are kind of waiting, before they come? Are you seeing that volume go down at this point in time? And maybe we'll do the three of you really quickly, and then we'll just dive in a little bit more, just to get a sense because you're in different regions. So let's go
Okay,
around.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and go.
Okay.
So yeah, we've definitely seen some changes here at Carolina Foothills. Hispanic and Latino members are asking a lot more questions. They're taking more time, and really looking for reassurance that we are able to lend to ITIN borrowers. And then also, with the addition of me being a bilingual lender, they know that we are still here for them. They know that they feel safe working with us, and we are proud to work with our ITIN borrowers.
Great.
I'll share. I think what we have seen and observed, and I think a lot of this, as we kind of plug in the executive order into all of this too, is so new. What we saw was more, definitely more of a concern when the immigration raids were happening in Los Angeles. We did see less foot traffic in the branches. We did, even presentations, or we were out in community, some of those got canceled. Not because we as a credit union were coming in, but just as a whole, the community not feeling safe. And so that was definitely, we still see some of that, not as much in kind of in our experience. But that did affect our communities. Now, when it comes to kind of what we're hearing now, I do think, Pablo, like you mentioned, a lot of it is kind of new. I know we're starting to hear it on the news. We actually have gotten questions when we've been out with community presenting on credit union benefits. We also have the Save On, or I'm sorry, Build and Save. We call it Save On, the Build and Save program through Inclusive. And so we do that through partners, and we're out in community, having folks get their bank accounts. And a lot of those folks are ITIN holders. And we've gotten a lot of questions, but I think it's still in that kind of, unsure phase where folks are asking the questions, but we're not seeing kind of a big turnout in terms of or lack of turnout, I should say, where folks are maybe not coming to us or not coming to, learn more about the credit union. We haven't seen that yet. I don't know what obviously the coming weeks will show, but that's been our experience so far.
And from our perspective, we have noticed a change in both the engagement and the comfort level, for both the ITIN members, but also for non-ITIN. And what we're hearing is most often is a greater sense of uncertainty, and they're also feeling a lot more cautious. So what we talk about is that these are hardworking families who remain still, even among, the toughest part of the year, they remain deeply committed to building a better future. They're still buying homes, they're still refinancing when needed, and they're still doing the best that they can with the options that they have to create financial stability for the loved ones. But at the same time, you know, we're focusing on helping our local economies where they are, and that commitment for us has not changed at all. We're still deeply committed. And for example, in mortgage lending right now, we require the IRS tax transcripts for every loan for ITIN borrowers. In the past, many members, when they would apply, they would obtain those transcripts online or by going to the IRS office in person. But more recently, what they're saying is that they are hesitating to go in person to get those tax transcripts. And instead, they're looking for other legal ways to get in those transcripts, either by mail or by finding online ways to get it. Um, in retail banking, on the other side, we're also hearing, more questions like, is my money safe? That's where
Mhm.
we're hearing a lot. And we're seeing members take additional steps to make sure that their money is going to be safe. So additional precautionary steps. Um, the family members are looking into adding joint co-borrowers or joint people with social security numbers, or even granting power of attorney. So that part of the education part, it feels like Latinos are looking into more options. They want to learn all the options that they have so that they can make an educated decision when and where to open their account. That's what we're seeing. And when it comes to community engagement, I was at the Mother's Day celebration the other day, and the organizer was expecting 1,000 attendees, but actually the attendance was much lower. It was like 500 to 600 Latino members. So we have noticed also a difference there in the community engagement.
And Ricardo, those is that across all the markets you guys serve? Virginia, Utah, and Texas, it's exactly the same behavior that
It's a,
people are pulling out a little bit.
it's a little different in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Texas, they're still like going out and feeling like, we can go to the events and we're feeling safe. Um, but we have noticed the same in Utah and Virginia. It's like the same atmosphere.
That's so we know that this is a trend. There's less
Mm,
willingness. It's not that there's less demand, right? So let's be
mm,
clear. The fact that people are not coming out doesn't mean that they don't have the same needs. I mean, life goes on, and people need to finance their cars or or get loans. But to your comment, Ricardo, about accessing IRS information, that's on the applicant side. They are
mm.
trying to figure out how I get this information without exposing myself. But what about you as a lender? Have you made any changes in terms of how you look and evaluate these loans? Are there any factors that you are being kind of, I don't want to say forced, but that you are taking into account now just to mitigate some of these perceived risks,
Mm.
from your within your own team? And then we'll go around the other two panelists as well.
Yeah, so from the credit union's perspective, we remain very deeply committed to doing the same ITIN lending. We're not shifting anything right now because we don't know what the rule is, still. And to your point, the engagement has not disappeared. The comfort levels have shifted a little bit, but it hasn't completely disappeared. And so we still remain the same. We're very committed, and we're not going to shift until we have more mandates.
That's great.
Yeah, same here over at Carolina Foothills. Our commitment has always stayed the same. We recently added an official policy on ITIN lending. emphasizing that there is no reason why we can't um, lend over to the ITIN borrowers. We've have not had any issues with ITIN borrowers, so we are very committed and making sure that they feel safe in these troubling times and make sure they're taken care of with the dignity and respect that they deserve.
Yes, same with us. I'll just piggyback on that is the no changes to how we process loans or any sort of changes to products or anything like that. Everything stays the same.
And what you're sharing is pretty consistent from what we're hearing both on the NALCAP and on the Juntos Avanzamos side is that we haven't seen any departures of or lower level of commitment to this, which is great. It's taken us such a long time to get where we are now that it would be a huge loss, not only for us as an industry, but for the community that is counting on us, you know, not necessarily for support, but for access, right? An access that is affordable and responsible, which is, one of the big issues facing our community. On the Juntos Avanzamos side, we have seen actually more Ukrainians are raising their hands around, the Juntos Avanzamos designation. We have around 8 in the pipeline. We're going to be reviewing at least 4 of them next month, so we see that the movement continues to grow despite all this noise. So let's call it noise for the time being because that's all it is until we have some more, enforcement, right, or regulations that force us to make some changes, which hopefully is not going to happen anytime soon or perhaps never. But again, that will depend on, how the regulators move forward in the implementation side. On the NCUA side, we know that they're going through a transition. Kyle Kaufman, the current chairman of the NCUA board and only member of the board, is leaving the agency. There's a new person, John Cruz, that is coming to take over also as an only member for the time being because NCUA cannot appoint, actually, not NCUA, but the administration cannot appoint the other 2 members until the lawsuit right now in place, is resolved because NCUA has traditionally had 3 board members. So in any case, we are going to have to wait and see how the new leadership of NCUA will carry on this process, and we're asking, and Inclusive is not the only one, or NALCA, but working with other trades, making sure that we have a seat at the table when these conversations really start taking place. So with that, and again, now really thinking about the perception in the public mind, are you communicating, with your members? What type of education? Because there's a fine line between communication and then freaking people out, So how are you guys managing that communication stream, so you are providing what people need to know so they can make informed decisions, but also you're not creating anxiety that could lead, to wrong decisions or rush decisions. So let's start with you, Ricardo.
Sure. Yeah, so I would say that, our ITIN community is very unique. And the reason I say that is because there is an ITIN, not an ITIN, an ICE office near where we are located. But what
In
really
Virginia, your
in
headquarters? Yeah.
Virginia, yeah,
Yeah.
is
Okay.
near. They're like all over the place. Here we see them all the time. But what really stands out the most is how united, and this is important to mention that Latinos are always like united and strong, and that continues to be how I perceive it. So our message to the ITIN community and to our members is that we need to remain kind to one another and to really focus on the good that we can do for others. Because at the end of the day, That's what is going to get us through the situation if it becomes more intense. So our communication has really, remained steady across the different departments within the credit union. But what has resonated most with members in a good way is our ability to be transparent to them and be upfront. Acknowledge that there is, an issue going on, and we understand what is going on. The Juntos Avanzamos branches have really resonated in a phenomenal way with the members because they feel they can go to that branch and get help in their own language. So that has really connected well with them.
And Ricardo, that's great because I think that one of the biggest challenges that we have as an industry is educating the community and for the community to understand where to go. And that's been one of the drivers of the Juntos Avanzamos program is to provide like a roadmap for people to know where to go, I mean, many credit unions, so you don't have to be Juntos Avanzamos to provide ITIN loans, but the program gives you that framework that assures consumers that that they're gonna find an experience that is hopefully consistent in different credit unions that have that Juntos Avanzamos designation. So I'm glad that that's working for you guys. Hopefully we can have more credit unions using the Juntos Avanzamos name as a way to guide the community to safe places, where they can have access to affordable financial products and services. So thank you for that. Oscar, what's your reaction?
Yeah, so we are pretty much communicating with our ITIN borrowers that in ways that just feel most personal through them. So like in-branch conversations, phone calls, bilingual support. We also have some lawn signs, like little signs outside of our every single one of our branches in both English and Spanish that say your ITIN is welcomed here. And then we also have community outreach programs through like Juntos Avanzamos, and then Alianza Spartanburg, which is focused on including the Hispanic community and empowering us in Spartanburg County here in South Carolina. Another thing is that we have a bilingual employee in every single department of our company. And, pretty much the message is simple. We're here, we're listening, and we're committed to our ITIN borrowers and treating them with, like I said, dignity and respect.
Terrific. That level of embedding, ITIN protocols within, your overall operations is great because I think that one of the big mistakes that we have seen is like developing something for those people and not having that something integrated into what everyone wants, right? I mean, Latinos, don't want just one thing. I mean, we all want access to everything, right? That we can have access to. So that's a great strategy, Oscar, and hopefully people here listening this, will take note of that. It's important to integrate. That's why we call all these efforts financial inclusion. It's about making sure that we're systematically removing some of these barriers that we don't even know we have, but they're there. They exist. So we have to do that work, and that's the way to go, to embed those, champions within those departments. Rocio, your turn.
Yes, I agree with that. I think for us, it's always been about the inclusion piece and how, we don't have a specific ITIN account or an ITIN lending product that's separate from what we do. We always go out as we're sharing kind of the products we do or in our newsletters or email communications, right? We have these products across the board, whether it's auto loans or credit cards, whatever it might be. And ITIN, again, like you said, Oscar, ITIN welcome, right? We accept ITIN, we accept matriculas. So we let folks know that it's this inclusive, kind of very holistic communication that we provide to members and to potential members. We do have, emails that go out that are also English, Spanish. One of the things that we started new is actually what we're calling new member orientations. It's also a way to kind of re-engage our members and to kind of, again, as they're kind of coming through that member journey, is making sure that we're sharing all of the great things that the credit union offers. But we're doing those both in English and in Spanish, and we're doing those monthly. And we're sharing those communications to them, letting them know that they're invited to learn, whether they've been a member for 20 years or whether they just, onboarded last month, that we are here to provide continuous information about all the products and services that are available to everyone who are members, regardless, again, of whether they're ITIN holders or they have a social. So for us, it's been really important to highlight that, and making sure that in our presentations, as we're out with community engagement, as Ricardo had mentioned, that we are being very clear about that welcoming message and that we do serve all folks.
Thank you, Rocio. That's great. So financial inclusion is about opening access, and that takes internal education. You have champions, but given what we're going through right now, that's taking an emotional toll on many of us, right? So without getting too personal, how's all this environment that impacted you guys on the personal level, but also your colleagues, because we have to show a strong face externally, we got to hold the line, but it takes a toll, right? So maybe we can just tip a little bit in terms of our own emotions and how those emotions are being shared by others within your organizations. Is that something that you are willing to share?
Yeah, I am. I can share. I'm an immigrant myself. So I was born in El Salvador, and I got to the USA at 12 years, and without knowing what hello even meant. So I had to pick it up from scratch and learn it and obtain friendships. I remember I used to ride the bus going to school. Everybody was talking on the bus and having, laughing, having these really great emotions and just making friendships. And I would be the kid on the corner because I didn't know how to communicate with them. So when it comes to how I feel nowadays with the current environment, I myself had an ITIN at one point, but and my parents. My dad had an ITIN at one point, and now he's got a social, thank God. My mother has an ITIN still. So when I see eyes going next to my car and I'm driving to work, it's pretty scary, very scary. And I can definitely relate to how Hispanics are feeling in today's environment. But at the end of the day, I don't fear because we're doing everything that we can with what we have. And I always tell my team to lead with kindness, lead with empathy, and with people first mindset. That's really especially important right now with our team members, who are navigating those difficult and emotional conversations with members. Just sticking to kindness, empathy, and people first mindset. I think that'll get us through in this situation. But to your point, it's not easy. It's not easy for sure. I've cried multiple times because of this situation. It's just the nervousness that comes to just driving next to a nice car is pretty crazy. But we're here. We're here for the community, and we want to help the community because at the end of the day, that's who we are, and that's what we stand for.
Thank you for opening up, Ricardo. I think that oftentimes we neglect ourselves, because we have to do the job, we have to help our team members, we have to help our members, but it takes a toll, right? Now, internally, do you have like a support group, at this point within the credit union where people can come together and kind of share and support each other?
Yes, we do actually. We have a Latino resource group, which I'm the chair of that Latino resource group right now. And what we did recently is we had a meeting for the whole organization, the whole credit union. Anybody who would like to attend that meeting and conversate, just talk about what's going on and how you're feeling. And that was really amazing to hear the team members and what they're feeling and they're going through. It's pretty similar to what I just shared with you right now. Everybody's going through that, especially if they're Latino and Hispanic, but also non-Hispanic and Latinos, English speaker, people who were born here. They're going through the same because empathy is just it's very deep. So yes, we have a resource group and we have listened to the team members in that sense.
Thank you, Ricardo. Rocio, Oscar, any comments?
I think for us, it's been, you know, not as openly sharing. And I think it's respecting to kind of where everyone is because we go back to, um, and we've talked to members, I say potential members because they will be members one day and those that we're engaging with in community, our partners that we work with, right? Again, I just go back to when, as Ricardo was sharing about, ICE being next to your car. It's a trigger, right? It's a trigger for a lot of us. And I think back to, when immigrations were really heavy here in LA and kind of how folks were feeling about it. And we did bring together resources both for the staff and how we can support members and just our community in general. And it's really hard for a lot of folks to share kind of personal stories for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
Personally, I was born and raised in California. My parents are from Mexico, but could totally relate to what Ricardo's saying. And I'm sorry for kind of deviating a little bit, but this is where I think you're kind of talking about, right, Pablo, is like affects us as well. And just thinking about, my dad is a gardener to this day. He doesn't want to retire or stop, but he has a social security number. But that is actually irrelevant in terms of how he's feeling and having to carry his red card that they gave him, right? My sister came home one day and gave him, here are your rights, dad, right? Because my dad is that stereotype that we hear so much, right? He's morenito, he speaks Spanish, he has a thick accent. And it creates this fear because in LA, there was a lot of gardeners being taken at one point, and my dad is a gardener. And so my mom would always call him and where are you? And are you okay? And San Las Redadas, on that street, don't go over there, come home. And it becomes very real for a lot of us. And so we think about how we take ourselves in that emotion and still continue to do the work. Like Ricardo says, like we still show up. How do we support our members? How do we continue to provide access to affordable products? How do we continue to have those conversations with members about their needs and how we can continue to support their financial journey and their goals and their families, right? So it's hard to navigate sometimes. And so taking that step, taking that breath, finding folks that you can talk to within our credit union space as friends, knowing what each other are going through, I think is really important to just remember that we're human beings and we're kind of living these experiences as we're going through this professional journey of working in our credit unions and just living our mission, right? That we are as credit unions. So
Thank you, Rocio. Yep, it's personal at every level. Oscar.
Yeah, yeah. To piggyback off of that, this is very personal to me. Um, I was born in Mexico, DF. My parents, my mom is from Veracruz, and my dad is from DF también. But both of them still have ITIN numbers. We unfortunately have not been able for them to gain citizenship yet. So it's still very scary. Here recently in South Carolina, we had ICE agents on one of our busiest highways, I-85, where they were targeting, work trucks, work vans, those very stereotypical Hispanic people. So I had to, call my parents and say, hey, just stay off of I-85 if you can. But the important part to kind of piggyback off Ricardo was we are focused on making sure our staff, our frontline staff, everybody feels supported, making sure we are leaning into getting the word out about our ITIN lending. Um, like Pablo said earlier, we here at Carolina Foothills recently celebrated our Juntos Avanzamos designation from Inclusive for our work in the Hispanic community. We had a big festival at one of our branches. We had food trucks, street vendors. We had bailarines. They were out there dancing cumbias and bachatas and stuff. So really helping our community feel heard and understood. So it's very important for us to make sure we are inclusive about our financial services and relationship building and serving members who deserve access to those same products.
Oscar, and maybe I'm gonna go off script here a little bit, but you are talking about bachatas, cumbias. One of the weaknesses that we have as a community is that we are so diverse. It's also a strength, but I think that in the past, what my observations, and I'm from Chile and I've been in this country for more than 30 years now, but one of my own observations is that we don't tend to stick together as Latinos. Nationality takes precedence, culture, whatever. I think that over the last couple of years, and I think that we saw some of this under the first Trump administration, that it was kind of an aha moment for many people, that we realized that those differences don't really matter. Because we are all targeted, right? I mean, no matter if you are from
Right.
Colombia, Chile, Mexico, it doesn't matter. You can be targeted. So, have you seen that in your communities? Have you seen people more like, it's less important now, where you come from than who you are here in this country?
Yeah, I would say in my experience being a lender, I haven't had many. On the contrary, I feel like um, a lot of the different Hispanics will always come in and say, "Oh, where are you from? I hear an accent," and we kind of bond over the different nationalities that we
Mm.
are. We come in different colors,
Yeah.
sizes, shapes, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's good that now we're seeing, especially with the second administration, a more of a how we're all at the end of the day going to be looked at the same, no matter where we come from. So I think we're now all trying to bond a little bit more and trying to stick together.
Ricardo, Rocio, any?
I haven't noticed anything on that sense, so I was gonna skip this one.
Totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think when, we've had, because we do and we do a lot of financial education in the community, and a lot of it is actually in Spanish. And what we see is folks from all nationalities, all, coming from different countries, but we bring food to the table. Doesn't even matter what the food is. Folks come together. We break bread. There's fellowship, right? And we just there's a lot of commonalities that we talk about in terms of what the needs are, and what the goals that people have. And I really think that that brings people together. So same as Ricardo, I haven't seen too much of that in terms of
Mhm.
any sort of division. There's definitely a lot of pride, right? So when
Yeah.
we say like, who's here from, Mexico and El Salvador, like, woo, everybody likes to share that they are. There's a lot of that pride, but I think in terms of, like you said, Pablo, it's definitely a strength. It adds to the vibrancy of the group, of the community. It's always a positive.
Yeah, and that's what we are seeing everywhere. Inclusive just had our annual conference in Portland, and one of the side visits was to one of our members, United's community, and they had this amazing, dancing groups. One was from Peru, and then they have the mariachis, and you have this like fusion of culture that comes together in such a beautiful way. That again, I mean, I think that we're seeing more and more of that now than before, and that speaks to my age, I guess. Ricardo, because when I came to the States, I came to New York. And I remember having some, like, you know, big frictions with some of the groups that were there, and those frictions are less noticeable now because people are understanding that we are really, in this together. So I'm glad that everyone is kind of saying that. Um, so speaking of community, have you seen any like changes or any um I don't know, change of the strategy, with your community partners? We rely a lot on community-based organizations to, connect with communities. How are they holding up, and are they changing the way that they interact with you as a financial institution partner, or how they communicate with their members? What's that relationship now look like compared to before all this started to happen, last year?
So I can go on that one. So for partnerships and community partnerships specifically, we're like always looking for new opportunities to continue that collaboration with the community, especially when it's the diverse community. That approach has not changed. So we still remain committed to being present where the community is, building those relationships. As I said before, rooted in kindness and trust, and and aligning our efforts with the needs that the members have, so that we can serve them better. Um, I think for us it is about staying connected, just being engaged and working alongside with organizations in ways that will create real value for families. That includes the partnerships that we already have, and the outreach efforts that we have. Like I can mention the outreach effort that we're doing with Coopera. That's a really great option and relationship that we're developing. So, but we're also engaging through the Hispanic radio in Virginia Beach area, La Selecta, and in Utah as well. I think that those partnerships strengthen who we are, and collaboration with the organizations, they just need to continue to happen, in my opinion. We just signed up with a new company called Hands of Grace, who is a local organization that helps immigrant families. And that's what they do. They provide food, they, collect donations, and they provide food for local immigrant families. So those relationships is what helps us stay informed, we stay visible, but at the same time, we're meeting that community needs, especially now, and in meaningful ways.
I love that idea of radio. Sounds so old school, but it's a
Yeah.
very powerful
Yeah.
channel in our community, right?
Yeah.
There's a number of Juntos Avanzamos Creanos that are making those connections, and it's not an expensive channel either. It's there's a lot of opportunities there to engage and to gain a presence in communities that don't have the time. Remember, I mean, if we think about the audience, people listen to radio because they're doing something, they're working. It's the only thing. If people are not like hooked to social media because they need the two hands, for that, right? So they're working, they're doing something, and they're listening. So it's a great way to kind of, get the message out. So thank you for saying that, Ricardo. Oscar Rocio, anything to add here?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. So I feel like our community partnerships have become even more important now in these times. Like I mentioned earlier, we are a proud member of Alianza Spartanburg, which is a social impact network that kind of promotes the inclusion of members of the Hispanic or Latinx community in Spartanburg County. Um, we also have partnerships with different select employee groups or SEGs. As you may know, we have big companies here, Dollar Tree Distribution, Nestle, stuff like that, where a lot of the Hispanic members are. So we do go out there and try to get the word out. I feel like the stronger that those relationships are, the better we can meet our people where they are. whether it's through the community groups, the SEGs. The collaborations kind of just help us serve members more effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, collaboration has always been really important. Partnerships have been a very important part of our model here and how we do business. We're actually going to be launching our small business suite of products, so that's expanded kind of who we work with out in the community, and a lot of those small business serving organizations. Um, but I think what's important is really to be present and show up, be in those spaces where community is, where these partners live. Sometimes we don't think about, if it's not necessarily credit union focused, or it's not, a home ownership fair, which we do a lot of those too. Like, maybe that's not my place, right? Maybe we think that way. And our kind of the way that we do business is that we're going to put ourselves in these places that maybe we don't think we belong. Because serving community is not just, it's about holistic wellness. So I think about financial wellness as part of that formula, right? And so folks need our services, but there's so many other services that they need as well. And so when we're working in partnership with other organizations that fill needs that we don't, and vice versa, that's where we see kind of the magic come to life as well. And so when, a few months back, when a lot of this started, with immigration raids and other things, we brought our partners together and we had a really raw and real vulnerable conversations multiple times actually on what folks were seeing, right? And we have schools and government agencies and churches and family resource centers, right? We have a lot of diverse partners that we work with. And so bringing them all to the table to talk about what are some of those common things we're seeing? What are some of the services you're providing? What are some of the things that we do and how can we support each other? Bringing resources to our community so that we're all learning together. So we see it as it's almost like it's this learning organization that we are, right? We're always trying to learn from others and what others are experiencing, and then sharing our own experiences. But being present, I would say, is really important.
Rocio, I love the fact that you guys are rolling out more products. I mean, the moment where the message is to hold the line, you are being, no, let's push out. And I think that this is a good reflection for us, like small business um, owners in immigrant communities have big challenges. And if we look at, some of the changes within the SBA, the Small Business Administration, there's even less access than before. So, as much as we, uh, are hurting by all these changes, there's also opportunities in terms of where can we step in to kind of fill those gaps that are intentionally being reopened. Or, in many ways, SBA has never been very flexible around ITIN holders anyway. So it's a great opportunity actually to step in and develop those relationships. In terms of partnerships, one thing that I want to mention is consulates. Foreign governments are very concerned about what's going on. They have to be careful about how they react. Of course, this is a domestic matter for the US, right? But, we have a very close relationship with the Mexican consulate network, for instance. And part of that work has been, kind of started in LA, Rocio, Los Angeles has the largest Mexican consulate in the US where, hundreds of thousands of people are seen every year. So I want to remind everyone that, consulates, Mexico, Colombia, El Salvador, Honduras, DR, any consulate that you have a relationship with, reach out to them, connect with them because they're in desperate need of guidance at how they can educate and make sure that their nationals are not rushing into making decisions that will hurt them in the long term, So consulates are really an important channel, and they are a trusted channel as well. These are, entities that are government run entities, right? So they're very careful in terms of the type of information they provide, and therefore, people trust what they say. So something for everyone to keep in mind, consulates of any country are an important ally, and they are eager actually to connect with credit unions. So with that, we have a couple of questions, but before we go on, I don't know, maybe if we have any questions from the audience right now.
Yes, we've got two. The
Okay,
first one is what procedures, plans, or guidance do your credit unions have if one of your members is deported? And what do you recommend for members asking these questions? And then after this one, we have two more.
great. So who wants to take this one?
I can go ahead and go. We currently don't have any procedures for when a member is deported. Luckily, we haven't had any of our members deported, so hopefully it stays like that. Um, we have had one of our employees um, dad recently deported, unfortunately, but she was able to take over all of the. I think he had a vehicle loan with us, but she was able to take over that and refinance that in her name. But those are good questions that I think we're going to have to bring up now.
We one of the things we've done is created and I'll say this is more external, right, for members and for community groups we're presenting to is around a more general kind of guide as to what to do, right, if a family member is deported in terms of how that impacts, your bank accounts or different things like that. It's more preventative in nature. So we want to make sure that we share this information up front with folks. We were doing a few of those workshops with several of our community partners, specifically those that serving immigrant and refugee communities in both English and Spanish. I'm happy to share that with folks or with NullCup to if folks are curious. Again, it's not doesn't mean it's the perfect presentation, but it's based on a lot of what was being sent out by Inclusive and other folks that are obviously trusted sources is how we kind of put that information together to share with folks. But we don't have like any sort of internal policy specifically around, how we work with members if that happens. So definitely still some work to do there.
Yeah, same here with Chartway is we don't have something specifically for that situation, but what we have is what we already have, right? So we have options to add additional people, owners on the account. We have power of attorney options. We're providing all those options that perhaps they just were not aware of that could help with a situation like this if it were to arrive. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is new, although it's not new. I mean, deportation has always been kind of, top of mind for, people who are undocumented. It's never been such a clear and present danger as today, but it's always, part of the mindset. So under the, and again, I'm old, so under the Bush administration, that was the first time that we heard, talks about massive deportations that didn't translate into anything, but there was talk back then, and a group called Appleseed developed a deportation guideline that kind of, stayed dormant, for many years because it never really, there was no need, right, to kind of actively distribute that. But now, this group again, they updated that guide. It's available online. Maybe probably you have it and you can, share with the group here, but it's a document that can help, members understand. And I think that the way that we manage this is not just about deportation. I think that is just about planning.
Mhm.
A lot of people, and deportation is more important right now because of the fears. But what happens if you have an accident? What happens if you die? I mean, all these things, in our communities are not well thought out because we don't want to think about these things, right? I mean, that's a reality. But this is an opportunity to kind of, educate people and kind of, the what if scenario is important for people to understand without necessarily freaking them out that you need this because you will be deported, right? So it's what is it that people say? Um it's a window of opportunity to kind of present a topic that should be discussed regardless of what's going on the immigration front. So that's one resource that's available. There are many Canadians that have come up with some protocols that perhaps NALCAP and Inclusive through Juntos Avanzamos, we can work together to kind of organize some resources so people don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And this is about repetition, it's about things that can be easily implemented if we had, a framework to work from, you know. So maybe that's, a to-do list for us maybe on our end to make sure that we compile those resources and we share them with anyone who wants to have something like that put in place, for their members, and not necessarily under the 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 label of deportation, but as state planning or something that is a little bit less um, um, intimidating.
Mm.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question.
Yes. And also, I did drop a link to the resources we have on our website, so I encourage you all to check them out. The next question is, did anyone on the panel implement a new skip a pay program for members who could not work while ICE was in the area? For example, here in City, FIFA has hired ICE for security, so they will be heavily present in KC for 2 months. Members might not be out working during this time. I'm wondering if anyone else implemented any special programs.
So we
Yeah, so you go ahead, Ricardo.
no, you go ahead, ask. Well, I'll start. So we do have a skip a pay program already in place, and it applies to anybody who is not able to make their payment on time and they need an extension. So it's not necessarily specifically for ITIN, but they are available, and they can take advantage of that nice benefit of skipping a pay, even if they are ITIN holders.
Ricardo, so let's talk about this because I think that that's really important because you can say skip an 18 payment, it would just draw more attention. And here, part of the challenge is that we want to educate the community. We want them to know that there's options, um, but without us becoming a target of from the authorities, right? So I love the concept that you have an alternative that applies to multiple situations. But I guess the question is, how do you make sure that your acting holders know that? And perhaps that needs to be a communication that is specific to them, but to them, not a public, like ad or something like that. Oscar, you had another reaction to it, right?
Yeah, so same here at Carolina Foothills, we already have a skip a pay program in place where somebody can just skip a payment if they're, like the example was if ICE is in the area, they don't feel comfortable going out, or you just can't make the monthly payment this month or something. We already have a skip a pay program implemented for any one of our borrowers, no matter if it's Social Security or ITIN.
Great. Rocio? No? Yes.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely circumstances where we work with the members depending on kind of what their situation is. Nothing specific to kind of, ice in the area or things like that. I know that, when the wildfires here in California, we did do kind of more of a lot of messaging around how we were supporting members with payments, but it's more of a kind of case by case basis, so not specific to the ICE or immigration raids.
So we are talking in terms of, deportations or ITIN holders, needs. Can we talk a little bit about needs from immigrants in general? One of the things that we have been exploring, and actually the World Council of Credit Unions has been leading this conversation, is around remittances. Because remittances, are highly, widely used in the immigrant community, not only ITIN holders, but we as an industry haven't been, an option. And there's different reasons for that, regulations, just the fact that we are not usually in the right locations. But technology now has, helped us breach some of these challenges. So full disclosure, for instance, I send money home, regularly, and I use a, solution called Remitly. Other people use, I don't know, Zoom or whatever. But those options mean that, those companies are basically subtracting, the resources from our accounts at the credit union, sending that to probably a bank in the other side. So is there now an opportunity to kind of look at remittances, especially because, early this year, because of the big, beautiful bill that we have now in place, there's a tax, a 1% tax that applies to remittances that originate um, in cash, right? So the question here for everyone, not only for the panelists, is any one of you exploring, a product solution that helps immigrants, send money back home, but in the context of using that product as a hook to bring them into the financial system? Anyone?
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry. I don't know. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
yeah.
Hi, Pablo. Yes, we are exploring one solution that we already is up and running, and the main concept of our solution is the customer is not sending money to somebody else. Basically, he's sending money from his account to his own account in Mexico. I mean, we create all the technology behind, and we interconnect it to financial institutions. That means is their money all the time. They are not sending money to family member or anyone. They are sending money to themselves using one single app. And the whole concept of this is one of my time at the Federal Reserve. One of the main concerns for all these remittance people, they don't have control of the money that they send abroad. When they send the money, they don't know what the money is going to be used for. They're supposed to be saving, but they never save it. And that's what Ardeco is working really hard in building this integration between control for both sides, not just one side. And that avoid a lot of issues. Like, for example, if for some reason you get deported, you have access to your money because you can transfer your money from your account in the United States to your own account in Mexico. And another issue that Pablo mentioned, all these taxes, because we are not doing remittances. Basically, it's not a third party payment. It's just exactly the same amount for your money to your money in Mexico. And this is one of the beautiful options that we have in technology. And I agree with you, Pablo. I think technology is going to be a good helper as long as we can just go a little bit outside of the box. I know legacy system holding us for many years. I mean, we know that problem in place, but we are working on it. And if you guys want, I'm more than happy to just give you any answer and put my website out there if you guys want to talk about it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Pablo.
John. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Yep.
Cristina.
Hey, Cristina.
¿Cómo estás, Pablo?
Muy bien, ¿y tú?
Yeah. So we as a credit union, we are not doing anything, but as we
No, no, no,
partner
no.
with,
You can't say that you're not doing anything.
well, no, 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 not with the remittances.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what, yeah, with the remittances, with the remittances. But we partner with the Consulate of Mexico, as you know, and the the consulates here in the United States, the whole consulate system, they have a very good product that is called Tarjetas del Bienestar. And those are you open an account here in the United States and also an account in Mexico, where you can transfer money between your accounts with no fees. You can deposit your check at Walgreens, I think CVS, Walmart, so on. There is no fee involved. I think there is some limit of $20,000 transfer. With your accounts here in the United States and in Mexico. But I think that's, and unfortunately, that is just for Mexican nationality. So, but I think that is something we promote since we are partnered with the consulate, and I think it's a good product.
That's great, Christina. And that product is basically a debit card that allows people to transfer money. So you still need to have a bank or a credit union account to use it, which is again another opportunity for credit unions to bring people into the financial mainstream because that's one of the biggest issues, right? I mean, undocumented people don't have access to services, right? So this is great. This is a conversation that I would love to follow up, and maybe perhaps at some point we can have a conversation around remittances. I think that it's beyond the threat of deportation. I think that it's a missed opportunity for credit unions to have a solution that we can control that gives members that control on the other side that John was talking about, because that's one of the issues that senders really struggle with. How do I direct those resources to the things that I want or I care about? Like, I don't know, I want to educate my kids, or I want to build a home back home. And that lack of control really translates into a lot of frustrations and some really dramatic situations in people's lives. So something for us to kind of, think about as a topic, maybe next time.
Thank you, Pablo. There are a few more questions
Mhm.
on the chat. The next one is my credit union currently will do ITIN lending with the same terms as a Social Security, but for people who have work authorizations, we can only lend to them if they can qualify for the loan payment based on how long they have until their work authorization expires. So, for example, if their authorization expires in 14 months, that's how long they have to repay. Um, and then this person is asking, does your credit union allow work authorization holders to have regular 72 to 84 months? And if so, could you let that person know how? He's wanting to present to the executive team to explain that big gap that we have. And he wants to be able to give all this information of how other credit unions are doing it.
That's a great question, and I can jump in on that one. From a lending perspective, we ran into an issue not with the Chartway Credit Union. Credit union. It was a different credit union I used to work for. We had the same situation arise, where we would only lend on the time frame that the work authorization was good for. And so if that was 2 years, which is most of the time is just 2 years, you would only get a loan up to however long that is until that EAD would expire. And so what we ended up doing is we went up to the board and we presented to them a the differences between EAD cards and because the board did not have the understanding that an EAD card can be renewed. And so a lot of the times it's just information that seniors might not know yet, or they might not have it readily available. So I would say that making sure that they understand that an EAD is able to be renewed and providing an example of one. So for instance, what we did is we provided one that was expired and then another one that was right next to that one, the renewed version. So they can see clearly that you can renew EAD and therefore you should be able to offer extended loan products at that point. And it worked. But every credit union is different, but that worked for us. Hopefully that'll help with your situation. So, one thing I forgot to add is they needed to see a long-term permit or long-term government issued ID. So what we ended up doing is we showed the EAD, the expired and the renewed version to show that they can renew, but we also showed the passport, and the passport was good for longer, and so that's the term that they used for the new loan.
That's really good to know as far as the passport goes. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. For sake of time, we'll go on to the next audience question. What steps has your organization taken to ease the stress of the underserved Latino community during these times?
I can jump in on that one. So what our credit union has done is really emphasize um, catering to the Latino members. So, with me being one of the vice presidents of the Latino Engagement Committee, my role is to make sure all of our flyers, marketing is available in Spanish, sending out emails in Spanish to different members that are coded as Latino in our core scimitar. And then we also, like I said, had a Juntos Avanzamos event where we really invited every single member, whether it was Hispanic member, any type of member, or even non-members, just getting the word out that we are here for everybody.
Yeah, I think for us, it's just the consistent messaging across all channels, right? Emails to anything we push out on social media or website. And especially when we're present in front of people face to face, is just leading with that we are here for our community, that we serve, again, inclusively members, whether you have an ITIN or whether you have a social, that we're here to serve, to provide these products and services, offer it in Spanish, English, do as much financial education as we can, and aligning ourselves with organizations that share similar vision and values that we do as a credit union, I think is really important, because it's really easy to um, say one thing or do one thing that really just ruins the trust you have in community. It's really hard to build that up, right? And so we take it very seriously in terms of what we say, how we say it, and just being genuine and authentic about it. I think being transparent is also important. We lead with that a lot too, is this is what we do, this is what we don't do. These are some of the things we're working through. These are some of the things we're still learning. And so I think coming to community intentionally with that, authenticity, being genuine and transparent, but again, aligning ourselves with folks that share a similar mission is really important. I think says a lot about who we are. We have, the USC name is in our name, right? And so a lot of folks in our communities think of us as the university, especially as we were coming, starting to do a lot more community work. It was, the questions we got weren't about opening bank accounts. They were about how their kids get accepted into USC. So we had to change a lot of that perspective. And I think we're still doing that. The other day, we just had an event yesterday, and I'll say one of the community members came up to us, business owner, because it was an event for businesses, came up to us and said, I see USC Credit Union everywhere in the community. And we support a lot of Spanish speaking folks with ITIN, undocumented folks. And when we want you to come and talk to them about, your products and services. And to me, that was like, I was overwhelmed, right, with good emotions to think that, what we're doing, what people are seeing and what they're hearing is making an impact and is speaking for itself. So that's really important to us.
That's great, Rocio. I love the transparency and making sure that we communicate the right information. One thing that goes along those lines is to make sure that especially nonprofits understand the implications of, because a lot of the challenges that we are facing are around access to financial services. They don't know enough about that. We are the experts, and we need to be providing that guidance to them, because otherwise they are going to overreact, and that overreaction will translate to the people they support, right? So one thing that we have been very intentional and inclusive is making sure that our national partners know what's going on. And for instance, that communication that went out a couple of days ago with NARCAP on this EO, we are actively sending that out to community organizations so they understand the implications, and they also understand that no changes have taken place because, again, if we as an industry are already, thinking that what may happen, people who don't know this will overreact, so it's really important that we are sending those messages to people out there so they can communicate that and relay that information to the people who may be impacted eventually.
All right. Thank you, Pablo. We do have to end our conversation here, unfortunately.
But I thought it was a 5-hour conversation. No?
We're just getting started.
Yes,
I
exactly.
know. But yes, with that said, we do have a couple of questions on the chat, but if our panelists wouldn't mind dropping their emails on the chat, if you're comfortable with that, so that folks can follow up with you. And I'll turn it over back to you, Pablo, to close those out.
Well, thank you. It's a lot to digest, but the important thing again is that, no changes are needed at this point. Clearly, with our panelists, what they're saying here is that they haven't changed their practices. They haven't seen any like negative trends either. We haven't seen delinquencies go up, in any measurable way, so I think that the message for everyone here is to understand that we got to hold the line. We have to make sure that our colleagues, our leadership team, and most importantly, our members, feel like that we're not walking away from this work, that we're here for them. If we are able to do this for the next couple of years and just navigate all these challenges, this market will never forget that. And that's really the important thing here is that credit unions have traditionally played that role of like we are the counterbalance to what's going on in the country. In recession times, banks leave communities. We stay in those communities. So whenever there's a challenge, our job is to be those proverbial financial first responders and stay there in the aftermath of whatever happens. I I perhaps to close this up out, maybe I'll ask the three of you guys to kind of give us a word of hope or a call to action. Let's go around.
I can start on that one.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. I think one thing.
Go ahead.
You go, Oscar.
Okay.
Go.
Okay. One thing that I think that I would want our other sister credit unions to walk away from this meeting and do differently is to be bolder. Don't let any assumptions or uncertainty keep you from serving our ITIN members. If you lead with trust, dignity, and real commitment, we can make a big, meaningful difference to our ITIN borrowers.
Awesome. The one thing I would say from what we've learned is that do not stay back. Do not pull back. Just instead lean in. And if you want to make a meaningful difference, begin with small actions like partnering with Coopera, partnering with NELCUP. You know, this information is already out there. And that's truly all I would say is just don't pull back, lean in. These are the moments that makes us stronger as a credit union. And if we can go through this, then it'll be so much better.
Yeah, and I would just add to that to take time to really understand your communities and the needs that they have. Um, it's being intentional with that information and having those conversations with your leadership, with your teams, so that you also, because there's a lot of questions around strategies and procedures, right? And I think that's where we need to be more intentional in terms of having those conversations and creating that strategy and those procedures that are understood across the board with every team member in our credit unions. And I say that as, you know, reflecting on everything I've learned being a part of this conversation as well, and what we need to do better and what we need to go back and continue to just adjust, you know, some of these practices and procedures, making sure our staff is supported, but having those conversations very intentionally within our credit unions is really important.
Great. So do not hold back. Keep moving forward. We appreciate everyone's commitment to this work. The opportunity is still there, and our mandate to serve these communities is stronger and more needed than ever. So thank you for tuning in. Maybe thank you for organizing this amazing call. We could go on and on, but really appreciate this opportunity to share this insight with you all.
Pablo, can I say something that I think is from our perspective is we are not a credit union, but we love credit unions. I mean, we are working in order to build that credit union. We have a motto in our company, which is uh, technology inclusion. We believe technology is key in the process. And even though we are not a credit union, we are supporting you guys and more than happy to just go forward and start looking for this, start thinking outside the box because that's what it's all about. We are out the box. We are not in a fit. Financial inclusion is not the same product used in Spanish. Financial inclusion is talking about the real products that we need as an immigrant. I'm from Colombia and I know how that feels.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thanks everyone again. Have a great rest of your day and la lucha continúa. Adiós.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, panelists.
Thank
See you
you.
all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.